Chuck Norris exited the supermarket with a few bags in hand, the faint crunch of gravel under his boots lost beneath the hum of a settling evening. The sun hovered low, bleeding gold across the sky, while a light breeze carried the scent of warm asphalt and something else, something colder. Something wrong. He didn't hear the girl approach. He felt her. Not a tug, not even a pull, more like a shift in the atmosphere, a ripple. He turned and saw her, a little girl, no more than 6, blonde pigtails bouncing against the shoulders of a faded floral dress. Tiny fingers barely touched the hem of his denim jacket. She stood like a statue, blue eyes locked on his face, not crying, not afraid, just fierce, focused, as if summoning all the courage she had to be there. Chuck didn't speak. He didn't need to. Fear didn't exist around him. But when the girl finally opened her mouth, the 3 words she whispered made his jaw tighten. Not because of what they were. Words on their own were just noise, but because of what they meant. The intent behind them was a silent cry, a challenge. And Chuck never walked away from a challenge. Oh. Without hesitation, he flipped open his indestructible cell phone and activated a line reserved for emergencies, the sheriff's direct code. Before we go further, take a second. Let us know where you're watching. If this is your kind of story, if you like tales about justice, grit, and quiet power, stick around, because tomorrow's story, it might hit even harder. Back to Chuck. The parking lot was fading into shadow, stretching long fingers across the concrete. He walked toward his truck, denim shirt fluttering slightly with each step. His bag, full of real food, nothing processed, hung from his arm like an afterthought. He wasn't thinking about groceries anymore. He was thinking about the world, how to fix it, how to protect what still mattered. And that faint touch again, enough to stop him cold. He looked down. The girl stood at his side now. Closer, no longer breathless, but definitely not calm. Her eyes were wide, scanning the horizon behind him, watching, not him, something else, someone else. She looked like she'd been running, but not long enough to exhaust her. Chuck lowered himself to her level, setting his bag beside his boots. His presence alone was gravity. Speak, he said, voice low, a controlled rumble. Serious, not scary. The girl's lips quivered, not with fear, with readiness. But her eyes kept darting past him. He stood up, slow and deliberate. His eyes scanned the area, nothing obvious. Just a few shoppers heading to their cars. But something in the air was off. An imbalance. He could feel it in his bones. "A lost?" he asked, voice flat, pointed and clear. He tried to answer, but all that came out was a breath. Her eyes shimmered, not with tears of fear, but of resolve. Something was coming, something she couldn't stop alone. And then, cutting through the air like a blade, came a woman's voice. "There you are, Lily." Tall blonde in leggings and a pink tunic approached fast, each step sharp. She wore a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. There was something too smooth about it, something rehearsed. She crouched beside the girl, placing firm hands on her shoulders. "Oh my goodness, you scared me." "You can't just wander off like that," she said, voice too sweet to be sincere. Chuck's eyes never left the girl. She didn't move, didn't smile, didn't even acknowledge the woman. The woman looked up, forced another smile. "Thank you so much for staying with her. I'm her stepmother, Brenda." Ha 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 ha. Chuck folded his arms, silent, observing. The girl didn't speak. No stepmom, no thank you, just a heavy silence and an unmistakable unease. "Is she all right?" Chuck asked, his voice like tempered steel. Yes, she's just shaken." "Got a little turned around," Brenda replied, letting out a nervous laugh. She squeezed the girl's shoulders again, a little too tightly. "But everything's fine now, right, Lily?" "Still nothing." The girl dropped her gaze to the ground. Chuck's gut twisted. He'd seen lost kids before. Scared kids. This wasn't that. This wasn't normal. She wasn't reacting like a child, reuniting with family. She was bracing herself like prey. He crouched down again, eyes locked on hers. "Do you want to go with her?" His voice was sharp now. Not a question, a test. The girl clenched her fists, swallowed hard. Lips parted, but before she could speak, the woman's grip tightened. "Come on, sweetheart." "He's already done more than enough," Brenda cut in, her voice tight behind the practiced warmth. The girl looked away. The air turned electric. Chuck didn't need a badge, didn't need backup. His instincts were never wrong. Something was off, deeply off. Brenda's smile twitched as she took the girl's hand, not leading her, but dragging her away. "Oh, thanks again, sir. Everything's under control." But before Chuck could respond, the girl glanced back. Just a second, just one look, a silent scream in her eyes. And in that moment, Chuck knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The wind picked up, not weather, but warning. Something had been disturbed. Justice was stirring. Chuck stayed rooted, eyes locked on their backs. The woman kept walking, talking, pretending. But the girl didn't pretend. And Chuck, he wasn't going anywhere. Not yet. Brenda's smile remained frozen in place, but the edges were cracking. Her lips curved upward, feigning ease, yet her eyes had gone flat and cold, calculating. She was pretending to be casual, but Chuck saw the stiffness in her stance, the forced rhythm in her voice. She was acting, and not well. "Well," she said, giving the girl's hand a gentle tug, "I suppose we should be going now." But the girl hesitated. It was less than a second, a breath, a blink, but Chuck caught it. A pause filled with meaning, a silent signal, a plea for rescue without words. Chuck gave a subtle nod, eyes never leaving hers. Just a flick of his chin, enough to say, "I saw that. I'm with you." "You said you're her stepmother?" he asked, voice level but lined with quiet steel. Brenda paused, just for a moment, a flicker of hesitation before she answered, like someone rifling through a script in their mind. Yes, she said too quickly. "Her father married me. She does this all the time. Wandering off. Kids, right?" She let out a brittle laugh that cracked mid-sentence. Chuck narrowed his eyes. "That was the first slip? What's her full name?" He crossed his arms, body unmoving. Brenda's smile stayed, but her eyes sharpened like twin blades. "Lily Marie Johnson," she snapped too fast, like reciting something she'd memorized under pressure. Chuck turned his gaze to the girl. She didn't flinch at the name, but she didn't acknowledge it either. No glance at Brenda, no relief, just silence. If this woman was her guardian, there should have been something. A flicker of recognition, affection, but there was nothing. Brenda, sensing his scrutiny, squeezed the girl's hand tighter. But he hid, and that's when it all clicked. The woman had known the child's name, without ever hearing it from her. Chuck remembered clearly. When he'd first encountered Lily, she hadn't spoken a single word. So how did Brenda know? Chuck's eyes turned to steel. "So you're her father's wife?" Another laugh, but this one was hollow, manufactured. "Yes, of course. Look, I appreciate your concern, sir, but there's no need to worry. Everything is fine." Chuck glanced around. A few shoppers meandered across the lot, unaware that something foul was brewing right in front of them. No one else sensed the wrongness in the air, but Chuck did. "She's fine," he said slowly. "Why hasn't she said a word?" Brenda's smile faltered. Her voice hardened. "She's shy, always has been, and she's upset. You know how kids are when they get lost." Chuck didn't answer right away. He was watching Lily, watching the way her shoulders remained rigid, her eyes locked on the pavement, her breath shallow. This wasn't shyness. It was suppression, fear, trauma. Brenda saw where Chuck's attention went and yanked Lily's hand again. Come on, sweetheart," she said, her tone turning sharper, less sweet. Lily blinked rapidly. She wasn't just afraid. She was suffocating. Chuck rose to his full height, voice low and calm, yet heavy with command. "Before you leave, I think it's best we speak to store security, just to make sure everything checks out." That broke Brenda's rhythm, just a flicker, but it was enough. She blinked and stumbled through a reply. "Won't be necessary. As I said, everything's under control." Chuck took a step back, seemingly to give them space, but it was a feint. The girl instinctively moved in the same direction, not toward Brenda, toward him. Brenda noticed. Her grip tightened. Lily flinched, almost gasped, but didn't make a sound. That was it. That was all Chuck needed. He stepped forward, sliding between them like a wall made of intent. "I believe it's wise," he said, voice edged with finality, "to ensure everyone's safe." Brenda's mask cracked. She let out a dry, forced chuckle. "I appreciate your concern, really, but this is becoming exhausting." Chuck didn't budge, didn't blink. His eyes bore into Lily's. She tried to speak, opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her lips moved without sound, and then everything changed. Brenda's composure shattered. The practiced smile died. Her body turned rigid, coiled tight. Her eyes blazed, not with fear, but fury. She stepped closer to Chuck, her voice low and sharp, the pleasant tone gone. "We don't have time for this. Come, Lily," no longer pretending to ask. Now she was commanding. She began pulling the girl harder this time, more like dragging. "I said everything is in hand," she said with a cold smirk, her voice now hollow ice. "Don't worry, sir." But then Lily looked at Chuck, really looked, and in that gaze he saw it. A screen, silent, desperate. Time slowed. Every movement became magnified. Brenda's grip, the girl's resistance, the way her shoes barely kept up with the pace. Chuck couldn't wait. Lily tugged her hand slightly, trying to break free. Brenda pulled back harder, snapping her wrist forward in a sharp motion that made Lily stumble. That was it. Chuck took a long, deliberate breath. If he moved too fast, Brenda might bolt. If he waited too long, the girl would be lost. "You seem to be in quite a hurry," he said, voice casual, but not soft. "But before you go, can the girl at least confirm she's all right?" Brenda hesitated again. Just half a second, but Chuck saw it. "She was rattled, as she already has," Brenda said. "Hasn't she?" Chuck arched a brow. "No. In fact, she hasn't said a word." Brenda's jaw clenched. Her eyes hardened. "She's timid or alarmed." Chuck shot back, the words landing like stone. Brenda stiffened. "Thank you for your help," she said coldly now, "but we are leaving." Chuck didn't move. "I'd still like to hear it from her." Brenda's eyes flicked left, then right, scanning the lot, calculating something. A way out, a witness, an accomplice. Chuck tracked every glance, every muscle twitch. Then he made his move. He stepped slightly to the side as if to let them pass. And Lily moved, not toward Brenda, toward him. Brenda felt it. She yanked Lily back so sharply the girl's feet nearly slipped. That was the final trigger. Chuck stepped fully in front of them, blocking their path with the full force of presence and intent. "Is there a problem?" he asked. His voice wasn't loud, but it was undeniable. Brenda stopped cold. The smile was gone. And in her eyes, no more act, only venom. Brenda's eyes narrowed into slits of fury. "I told you," she snapped, voice venomous. "I am her stepmother. This has gone too far. Move, now." Chuck didn't move an inch. His gaze fell to Lily, motionless, frozen in fear, but her eyes screamed louder than any voice could. And then she did something that shattered any last doubt in Chuck's mind. She looked up at him and barely moved her lips. No sound, but it was clear. Help. That was all Chuck needed. "You can't take her," he said, his voice now cold steel. Quiet, but final. Brenda's face drained of color. "Excuse me?" she barked, forcing out a hollow laugh, the kind that echoed with desperation. Chuck stepped forward, each step like a closing door. "She doesn't want to be with you." And Brenda pressed her lips tight. Her eyes flicked around the parking lot, darting, hunting for a solution, an exit, a witness, anything. And then she changed. She let go of Lily's hand, smiled like nothing had happened. "Oh, come now," she said sweetly, too sweet. "She wants to come." "Lily, tell him we're fine, darling." But Lily didn't move. Her eyes welled with tears. That was enough. Chuck pulled his phone from his pocket. Brenda saw the motion and lunged. Lily turned to run. Brenda turned to grab. Chaos erupted. The air shifted. Time fractured. Brenda's hand snapped around Lily's wrist like a viper. "We're leaving." Now. Her voice was no longer pretending. It was a threat. Lily sobbed, twisting, but she was too small, too fragile. Chuck stepped between them, arm up like a shield. "I'll let her go," he said, calm and Brenda's expression was pure hatred now. Her words were knives. "A move." Chuck didn't move. "If your family, explain why she's begging me for help." Brenda clenched her jaw so tightly her neck tensed. Her facade was dead now. What remained was raw malice. Then Lily whispered, so softly Chuck had to strain to hear it. "Don't let her take me." It hit him like a punch to the chest, and Brenda knew it was over. With no more masks to wear, she shoved Lily aside and lunged at Chuck, hands outstretched, claws bared. But Chuck was ready. He caught her wrist midair, locked them down, his stance solid. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," she hissed. "I do," he said. "I'd kidnap her." Her eyes went wide for a fraction of a second. Then she screamed, "Help, he's attacking me!" Chuck didn't flinch. People turned. Head snapped toward the chaos. "I need assistance," he called out, keeping his grip tight. "This woman is trying to abduct a child." Brenda twisted in his grasp, trying to wrench free. Lily stood behind, frozen in place, her hands at her chest, shaking. "Oh, Lily, stay with me," Chuck said over his shoulder, keeping his eyes on Brenda. Lily blinked once, twice, then ran forward and latched onto Chuck's arm, holding on tight, and then everything unraveled. Brenda jerked suddenly with all her weight, and Chuck's balance faltered, just for a second. It was enough. She tore free. "Stop that woman," Chuck shouted. But no one moved fast enough. She bolted, sprinting across the parking lot, weaving between the rows of cars like a shadow in flight. Chuck didn't hesitate. He grabbed Lily's hand. "Hold on," he barked, and they ran. And they ran. Brenda was fast, but desperation fueled her. She was sprinting between bumpers, cutting through lanes, dodging carts and people in disbelief. She wasn't running like someone escaping trouble. She was running like someone escaping truth. Chuck's heart thundered in his ears. His legs ached, but he didn't let go of Lily, not for a second. "You don't know who you're dealing with." Brenda screamed over her shoulder, her voice cracked and unhinged. And then another scream, from the opposite end of the lot. A voice not Brenda's. Someone had seen someone else was reacting. The chaos was growing. Brenda twisted through a narrow line of cars, nearly slipping, eyes wild. She knew, if she was caught, this was the end. No more lies, no more masks, just the truth and punishment. But Chuck wasn't stopping. He didn't care about being a hero. He wasn't trained for this. He was just a man who saw something wrong and refused to walk away. "Stop running!" he shouted, his voice bouncing between the metal frames of the cars. But Brenda didn't stop, because she wasn't just running from him. She was running from everything of compassion, hope, and courage.